In this video, I will be making the argument that targeted advertising might actually kind of be a good thing. Yeah, me neither. So there's a good chance you have never heard of this because very few people actually talked about it, and those who did talk about it only mentioned it in passing, but YouTube's been having some issues lately. I know it came as a surprise to me as well that the platform that has worked perfectly for all parties involved for years might possibly have a bit of a problem, but it seems to be the case. That was sarcasm, by the way. I know some of you don't recognize it when you see it, so take notes, that was sarcasm. So the war between the old media and the new media has been talked about for a long time. It's been going on for a long time. And I'll highlight some of the aspects right now that I feel that have, even all the talking that has been done, often been a little overlooked before I reach my final conclusion on this. A huge amount of people have started getting most of their news, punditry and entertainment from online sources, like YouTube primarily, as opposed to traditional sources like TV and print media. I think that this is an established fact that we should all be aware of. And even the older generations have since taken to, at least in some parts, consuming a bit of their media online. And we have young people who consume the vast majority of their media online. And seeing as young people are the future, maybe their habits are something that you should look at when planning for said future. We want to watch shit on our schedule, not when some TV exec decided that this specific program that we would like to watch is going to air. We've got shit to do, okay? We want to interact directly with other people who've seen this very same content, and also possibly with the creators of that content themselves. Though we like to put them on a pedestal, we also like that pedestal to be in the same room as us. We want to watch our niche content. We want to have that very specific interest that only we and a handful of other people care about, and be able to watch shows about it. Also, and this is probably the most important one, we don't want to watch the shit that we don't want to watch. We don't want to have to sit down in front of the TV and watch some shitty reality show to bridge the time between the one program we like and the other program we like. To the old media, the fact that we are like this and that more people are becoming like this every day because it's just so convenient and so easy to do is a terminal illness, and they will die from it eventually. The key difference between old media and new media is not the way it's distributed, but how incredibly fragmented new media is. This is the thing on which all problems and advantages that both of these media types have builds on. Content on YouTube is produced by individuals or small teams for the really extreme productions. Even the biggest YouTube networks are dwarfed by the smallest media giant. If an old media company, a huge one, tried to provide the same array and diversity of entertainment formats that YouTube can provide, they would do so from the top down. They would assemble teams, they would hire specialists, they would front cash, set up productions, and rent studio space, etc. On YouTube, it's a dude talking about shit in his living room in front of his bookcase. There's only one person involved in this whole production, and it's me. If this was a show on CNN, because they wanted to, I don't know, appeal to younger audiences or whatever, there would be 4 more people behind the camera right now, and also this wouldn't be my home. This scales, so you can imagine how much money YouTube saves, while still at the same time being able to provide a wider array of content to interest a maximum amount of people with their sometimes very niche interests, right? Old media companies, even if they wanted to switch to the distribution model of on-demand video, which some of them are doing, they couldn't sustain their operations because they are too large for the technology that we have. And here's the thing. It's not the editors, the camera people, the script writers, the presenters, the researchers, right? Those aren't the people who are dispensable now. Those aren't the people you can get rid of to cut back on overhead. You still need those people for big show formats. The people who have become pointless are also the ones who are paid the most, right? This is the executives and the administrators. The people who are paid money to manage all the people who do the actual entertainment work as is required in a huge organization. Because what's a media executive's job, really, if not deciding what to put on their TV network, right? Which shows to put on at which times, which shows to purchase, fund, or not to do anything with because their audiences wouldn't be interested in them, right? They also coordinate with advertisers. They make sure that the ad placements are correct and that nobody switches away from their channel because something in the rhythm has been broken. You don't need that on YouTube. You don't need people who do that because the audiences will go and find what they want to watch for themselves, assisted by completely automated machines who are also the ones who are doing the ad placement. There is no human middleman needed, just a couple software engineers. Now, a big factor in why old media is being supported so much by so many parties is control. Right? This is where they who are dying get governments, powerful NGOs, and all kinds of private entities on board. As huge and powerful as CNN is, it is much easier to control than what is said on YouTube. Because at the end of the day, you know the executives who are running this self-correcting machine, and the entire machine is accountable to them, so what they say goes. If, for instance, you're a government, and there's a war you wish to attend, but your voters won't let you, you can just bombard them with propaganda and the narrative that the war is good and justified by the media. You know, like happens all the time. You can do this with any narrative you want to push so long as you're able to present a united front. Because at the end of the day, it's the elites and the billionaires who decide what Wolf Blitzer says. YouTube doesn't do that. YouTube doesn't want to do that because it would massively increase overhead costs and is also the main reason why people distrust the mainstream media. YouTube can't do that because it would make them just as unsustainable as the old media. It is literally impossible to go through every single video that is uploaded to YouTube and check if it has the correct pre-approved narrative. So if, for instance, Cal Kalinske says something that goes against the pre-approved narrative, and millions of people see it and agree with it because, you know, they have a different opinion than what the government is trying to push on them, well then the person who decided what Cal Kalinske was going to say is Cal Kalinske and Big Seltzer, but let's be honest, we're all sponsored by Big Seltzer. It is impossible to push a narrative as a united front in fractured online media. It just cannot be done. And that is why powerful people and powerful powers are on the side of the old media, because those they can control. This is why the Wall Street Journal went through a bunch of PewDiePie videos, lifted some jokes out of context, and then sent them to the advertisers who advertise on YouTube, because advertisers are the holy grail of the media world. Whenever you read one of the many articles that come out regularly, where old media slams YouTube specifically, because YouTube is the flagship of new media, you will see very detailed lists on which companies have been playing ads on which questionable videos and why that is questionable. And those things are not there to inform you. Those things are there to shame those advertisers. Oh, looks like Hugo Boss has been supporting white supremacy with this specific YouTube video. Or at least that's how we'll make it look. And then on the other hand, we will offer them the safety of knowing that their ads will only be played against boring content that is palatable to everyone, because we know they need to advertise, so they better do it with us. You cannot expect the media to objectively report on something that directly concerns them. This fear-mongering by the old media is why advertisers are leaving YouTube, right? And so a whole lot of independent content creators are at the risk of losing their livelihood. So YouTube has to react for the sake of those content creators and of course also for their own sake. Advertisers want control over which content their ads are played against, because that's the way it's always been. And it is the exact attack vector that old media is pushing, because even though they're dying, they still have huge power over what the public and especially the elites think. Because here's the thing, right? If you've ever killed an elephant with your bare hands, you know that even in its final death rattles, it's still a fucking elephant. So YouTube has a decision to make. If they continue to play ads as usual, all the advertisers will pull their ads, and then all of their content creators will leave, and they will be forever ruined. Instead of allowing that to happen, YouTube gives the advertisers the concession of allowing them to control where their ads are placed. Except the problem is, and we've already established this, that YouTube has no idea where ads are placed. It's simply not possible for them to know. So they get machines to do it, because machines can work very fast and pretty much forever. The problem being that machines are stupid. YouTube doesn't even want to know what goes on specifically in each video, because that would put them in the realm of being a publisher, which would open a whole new dimension of problems that YouTube would sooner seek to avoid. And because the old media is still hounding them and watching their every step, they need to make the machines err very far on the side of caution, which means that a whole lot of livelihoods are lost, because that is the alternative to everyone losing their livelihoods. So you might be a completely innocuous content creator that advertisers would have absolutely no problem advertising on, but because the bot doesn't understand this, you try to ask YouTube, hey, how do I get around this shit? I'm not a robot, I need food. The problem is, if YouTube communicated to you how to get around that bot, you could take advantage of that, because after all, you're just a dude in a bedroom. YouTube doesn't want to censor stories about sexual harassment or self-harm, suicide, these things, right? Especially if they're personal stories or stories that are meant to help people not to do these things, or help them get over these things if they were done to them. I talk about suicide prevention on this channel. Suicide is a topic that's very dear to my heart. I am depressed, I have been suicidal in the past, but I never tag these things appropriately, because that would mean that they would get sandbagged, and then they would never reach the persons who actually need to see them. So YouTube thinks to itself, well, we don't want to have stories about sexual harassment being sandbagged, so we will whitelist the tag Me Too, because there's a good chance right now that if you've been a victim of sexual harassment, you will tag your video Me Too. And they did the same thing for the tag satire. Except they can't tell their creators that this is what they're doing. They can't tell them that, hey, if you use this specific tag, your video will get whitelisted. Because all those Spider-Man Elsa poop videos that they're trying to keep off the site at this point in time, well, they'd be tagged with Me Too and satire faster than you can say, oh shit, that was not supposed to happen! Because bots, they still don't know what is going on in videos. And here's the thing. I have no idea how to fix this problem, and I suspect YouTube doesn't either. It would, in principle, be against YouTube's interest to get rid of offensive comedy and punditry and all those things, because they make them a lot of money. But they have to get rid of these things because the old media convinced advertisers that these things on YouTube are poo-poo and need to be flushed. Now, one of the small ideas that I have that YouTube could maybe do to remedy this situation is possibly roll out YouTube Red in a few more countries. I know as a content creator that actually brings in a considerable chunk of change, but at the end of the day, I think even though that would make them less reliant on advertisers for their revenue and for the revenue of their creators, it's more of a band-aid solution than anything else. The only solution that I can come up with, and hopefully there's others because this one might be a little difficult, is a cultural shift in how we think about ads being placed in places. Because first of all, most people don't really care which ads are placed in front of their content on YouTube. They make no connection between the content and the advertiser. And the reason that some people do, especially in the old media, is because it used to be that there was a connection between the content being played and the advertiser. It used to be with television that you would do market research to find out which groups of people watched which types of program at which time of the day. And then you would place ads that targeted these specific groups of consumers in those time slots. But the way Google does it, and the way it is done online anyway, is that the content you're actually watching is completely irrelevant. They don't need to analyze the content that you enjoy to determine what kind of a person you are. They already know what kind of a person you are. All they need is for you to watch any content at all, and they will provide you with ads that are customized to you. It's not the content that determines which ads are placed on it. It is the viewer of the content. The content of the content is completely irrelevant. This is how ads are placed online. There is absolutely no connection between a video and the ads that are run with it. So the ads that are run with it cannot in any way be interpreted to be an endorsement of what that video says, which is an argument that you used to be able to make with TV because there everything was planned. If we become aware of this as a culture, and we also manage to convince advertisers that this is the case, that the best way of getting their ads to people is to let them watch whatever they're interested in, which requires a certain wild west of content creation. It requires an absolutely free market, because only such a free market can actually provide the entertainment people want. Well, then the future might actually be bright. Except, here's the thing. I don't know how to do that either. In that spirit, thank you very much for watching. Just as a quick side note, there is currently an issue with maker support that has been ongoing for, I don't know, like 2 weeks at this point. They seem to be having a lot of trouble with their payment processor, which it seems to me there is a targeted campaign by probably leftist groups, I don't know, against this payment processor to drop maker support, but some people have been saying that the whole operation is a scam. I don't personally believe that. It feels like a bit of an unfounded conspiracy theory to me, especially because one of the main arguments I have seen for this is that the founder of Maker Support was apparently a Hillary supporter. I don't know either, but in the interest of full disclosure, if you've been thinking about becoming a supporter of mine on Maker Support and this whole situation scares you, maybe hold off on that for a bit, because I do expect that the situation will resolve itself. Nevertheless, I find you all to be acceptable specimens of the human race, and see you around, cunts!